Our meeting Thursday, May 16th. Please rise and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Emergency exits are to my right, behind the town attorney, and also the door you came in. Roll, please.
Councilwoman Samoji? Here. Councilman Morris?
Here.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Here.
Supervisor Prodi?
Here.
And the record will reflect that Councilman Gutierrez is absent this evening.
And I'd like to introduce Colin Atkins, who's going to speak to us about environmental and energy resources and energy decisions assistance.
Well, good evening, and thanks to all of you for having me tonight. I am Colin Adkins. I'm a community energy advisor with Cornell Cooperative Extension in Dutchess County. And I have the privilege of working on this fantastic regional program to help residents, small businesses, nonprofits in the Mid-Hudson region gain access to the many different programs and incentives there are available through the state for energy efficiency upgrades and clean energy upgrades. And I like to start off a lot of these talks. I'm going to go through a short presentation that I give to a lot of our public audience presentations. And I like to start a lot of them off with an old adage, now that things are getting green again. If you're familiar with the expression that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and the second best time is now, the same is true for energy efficiency. There's a lot of things we could have invested in 20 years ago that would make our lives a lot easier, a lot more affordable today, but we didn't. And energy efficiency is still one of the most cost-effective ways of reducing pollution. So, you know, the cheapest kilowatt hour is the one we don't use. So with that, there are a variety of reasons why New York State is in the situation it's in. Its building stock is much older than average nationally, which provides a lot of good things for our rural character, but it's also it really does put a disproportionate burden on our wallets, and especially those folks in low to moderate income households. 1 in 3 Americans struggles with energy security, or just the basic need to pay their energy bills as a real struggle for a lot of people. And so there's a lot of different reasons why that happens, and we're not going to unravel the entire socioeconomic complexity of the issue tonight, but I do want to touch on a few things that we often try to communicate through our work, which is that the whole home works as a system. And to give an example, in the heating days, in the cold months of the year, when that hot air rises, hot air wants to do what hot air does. It wants to rise and leave the house through any means it can. And for every cubic foot of hot air that leaves, a cubic foot of air's got to come back in. It's cold, it's drawing in particulate matter and pollutants from outdoors. So it begins this negative cycle where that hot air that rises, if the home is not well insulated or ventilated, will be touching the roof. It'll warm that roof. It will melt snow, which will come down and melt over the edges and create ice dams. It can lead to water infiltration. It can lead to mold and pests and degradation of the building. So this really begins that cycle anew. And when you bring in the fact that we spend most of our energy dollars just heating and cooling the air in our home, that is where we really start to see this big boom and bust cycle that hurts people in their wallets every year. And we're coming into the second half of that, which is the extreme heat. And this cycle happens in reverse, where sun that comes down is baking that uninsulated or underinsulated roof. It is creating a lot of hot air that wants to expand, and it actually forces its way back down through the house. and folks that go to turn on the AC get hit with demand charges, because this gets very expensive for the grid to operate. When we all come home in the evening at the same time and turn on our appliances, we start our dishwashers, there is a lot of demand on the grid that then has to be responded to with dirtier, less efficient power production. So this is really why, or the bedrock for why 1 in 3 Americans struggles to pay their energy bills, is because of this cycle. But I'm here to say that there's a lot of programs to help address this underlying program. I'm going to skip right past a lot of the emergency response programs that are out there, like HEAP. HEAP is a great program, but it provides short-term temporary relief. It doesn't address the underlying causes of these inefficiencies. So thankfully, we are actually all paying into the solution. And as utility customers, there is money on the table for us to access to address the inefficiencies of our home and help our neighbors along with this as well. If you look at your energy bill, you'll see a little line item on there, SBC/RPS charges. This stands for Renewable Portfolio Standards and Systems Benefit Charge, which goes into a big pool of money that the state can access and redistribute into energy efficiency programs, research and development. It goes to fund the local community energy advisors like myself. And it also goes to fund these suite of programs. And it's absolutely true that there's a program out there for everybody. So everyone can take advantage in some way, beginning with the home energy assessment, which most New Yorkers can get at a free or reduced cost. And there's a big misnomer out there, well, if I rent, none of this applies to me, I don't own my home. It's actually not true. There's these programs you can participate in as renters as well as homeowners. And it doesn't matter the size of your building, there is a program to match it. All this information, it's a lot of information up here, and I know it's a little hard to read, but the main takeaways there is that these programs are tiered in a way to address all New Yorkers regardless of their income or living situation. And the community energy advisors like myself are here to help folks along the way. Question?
What's the AMI, SMI?
AMI stands for Area Median Income, so that's roughly where the brackets are, and the numbers you see there in that highlighted row is for a family of 4 in Dutchess County. So these are just some ballpark numbers. That number actually scales. These income thresholds change depending on the size of the household. And then, so if you meet certain income guidelines, less than 80% of the area median income, or that moderate income category, you can get access to cost share to actually do the upgrades that are recommended by these Building Performance Institute Gold Star certified contractors. If you meet further income guidelines, if you're considered low income, you can actually get 100% of the work paid for by the state through that system benefit charge. And these are things like installation of high efficiency lighting, attic and wall insulation. You can even get a very old inefficient freezer or refrigerator replaced, water saving shower heads, strategic air sealing, heating system upgrades, and if the contractors encounter any health and safety concerns along the way, those can also be addressed up to the project per project maximum. The other program that we are really wanting residents to know about here is the Solar for All program. This is another fantastic low-income program that gives New Yorkers free solar subscriptions or solar credits directly on their bill. So I mentioned those emergency immediate relief. This is yet another way that low-income residents can see immediate benefits on their electricity bill and support cleaner, more renewable sources of energy. This is fantastic for renters as well. There's no need to install solar panels on your property. This all happens on a community solar model where a solar array will be generating electricity onto the grid. And it's all basically done on accounting. That customer receives credits to their bill for the electricity that they, or that the state essentially is subsidizing on that solar array. In addition to these programs, the community energy advisors are here to help, I mentioned small businesses, nonprofits get access to a lot of different incentives that are available through the state right now. So to mention a few, there are incentives for solar panels. There are incentives for air source and ground source heat pumps. There are still incentives for electric vehicle charging stations and electric vehicles themselves. There's also fantastic programs for multifamily buildings that really address those larger consumers of energy. There are agricultural energy audits as well. Energy assessments for small businesses, regardless of the little mom and pop store all the way up to something a bit more industrial. And because further upstate you go, a lot more people tend to heat with wood. Wood's another renewable source, and the state is incentivizing that as well. So there are incentives for these highly efficient cordwood boilers and pellet boilers, all of which the energy advisor can help folks with. This is a little bit about our process. So beginning with outreach, we do a lot of consultation. We pretty much spend most of our time in these earlier cultivating stages, really trying to help folks understand the incentives that are out there and make informed decisions. But we can also be there to engage with the contractor, to help them schedule, to help them explore their options and expose them to different financing options, and then be that consistent third party all the way through the construction and the upgrades. Beyond just the dollars saved or the kilowatt hours saved, this is really about people. I had a gentleman walk into my office last August who was convinced that he was going to freeze to death in his home last winter. He had been turned down for HEAP initially due to the asset restrictions, and he was really kind of grasping at straws for what he could do to be more comfortable in his home. And thanks to a veritable army of service providers that we were able to connect him to, as well as get him started on Empower New York, we were able to get him heating system upgrades, wall insulation, air sealing, lighting retrofits. He even got, we then connected him with HEAP, and he was finally able to get that process back on track. That really helped him resume, and find a sense of normalcy in his life again. That is the real benefit of these programs. A lot of people are struggling, doesn't matter what time of year, to pay their energy bills, and it affects almost every aspect of their lives. If you've ever opened up a utility bill and just been gobsmacked by that number sitting there, it is truly a state of crisis that I hope none of you have to experience. That is, I think, the real benefit of these programs and why positions like mine exist. So my ask here tonight is not only just to make you aware of these programs and ask you if anybody wants a home energy audit. I'd be happy to help you get into these programs as well, but to help me take this information to the residents. And let's work together to make sure that nobody in Amenia has to go through that crisis. We're also here to just provide some basic energy literacy along the way. There's a lot we can all do on our own volition to help reduce our energy bills as well. Everything from setting a thermostat and just some basic behavioral changes to teaching folks how to weather strip and seal themselves. And we're all consumers too. We all make energy decisions with our dollars when we shop. And thankfully there's a lot of easy ways to find more energy efficient products that save us money in the long term. So with that, the most important information out of this whole presentation is just my contact information. But I don't want to make you have to write it down. So I've also given you all some very light literature with you. There's the fact sheet for the Community Energy Engagement Program. My contact information is on the back of that, as well as our residential brochure that I would love to work with you all to put into the hands of Amenia residents. And I brought some of those with me today that I can leave with you. And with that, I'm, of course, available to answer any of your questions.
If you go back to the slide that I asked you what the initials were for, if you could give us like area median income.
Sure.
I've heard, I'm not sure what our area median income, what's typical for Amenia, for a median household income. In other words, those numbers don't really tell me that much.
Yep. Well, so first of all, these are just the thresholds in which, you know,
Right.
the state divides you into these services. And it's all done on a county level as well. I'm not sure what the median income is for Amenia, but that's all census data that's
We
publicly
look it up.
accessible.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, if you were interested, I could help you find that.
But there's not like a sweet spot where you say, okay, if your, you know, household income is $40,000, there is a ton of stuff that you must get a sense of where the most impact is for the people who need it most,
Yep.
right? Like the fellow you were saying,
Yep.
didn't know where to turn, he felt like it was going to freeze to death in his house. So that kind of, so there's a lot of factors, right?
Sure.
How many dependents are in your house, you mentioned?
Yep.
And
so for a lot of these programs, not just NYSERDA's energy efficiency programs, but HEAP and SNAP and all those, they also scale for how many people are in the home. So it's hard to give you just a number.
I see.
Because also, you know, what's
Factors.
in a number, right? Like I know people that have just as much hardship, if not more, being $100 over this limit, and not being able to have the same access to these services as folks that are $100 under that threshold. You know, it's a number.
Right, and you're willing to work with people and show them what they can
Exactly, and then
qualify for.
yeah, exactly. And because we're very well connected with other service providers through cooperative extension, we're able to connect them with the folks in Eat Smart New York, who can have those conversations about food and nutrition and the supplemental nutrition assistance program and other services. So we're really concentrating now on trying to create a no wrong door system, where no matter where somebody comes to us, they get access to all these different services, and we're not just turning them away after our work's done.
So what's an example? So we just come to you and we say we want to have a home energy audit. So there's, we may have to cost share, but most of them are free. Is that right?
For most New Yorkers, yeah.
And so then they'll recommend the insulation. They'll go around and test the whole house, recommend where you need weather stripping, all kinds of
Yeah.
medium, long-term goals for
Yep.
assessing your, okay.
And essentially what they're giving you is a very detailed quote. So for each of those recommended measures, you know, they're also giving you how much it costs, what your return on investment is like. So we often, you know, we have people that get the assessment and they don't really know what to make out of this report, right? There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of jargon. So we're there to help them kind of break it down. And then say, well, so these are the recommended measures. You are eligible for these incentives to get that work done, and here's how we can help you, you know, finance the rest and show you where to turn to get the work done. Because no two houses are the same. Every house has got to be taken case by case. So wherever possible, we're trying to connect them with rebates and incentives through the utility. We're trying to connect them with other local services through, say, you know, Dutchess Community Action Partnership and the other folks, or Rebuilding Together. Dutchess County does amazing work that complements this very well. All the above.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And you said you had pamphlets you were going to leave here?
Yep, I have some of the more of the little trifold brochures. I'd be happy to work with Dawn to find a nice home for them here and
We have a
get more
table
printed
as
up.
you come in that we put things on for people to just pick up as they come in.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And we can share the information on our website.
Wonderful. Really appreciate that.
And our local Channel 22.
Well, that's right. For anyone watching this after the fact or live streaming right now, I'll give my contact information one more time if you'd like to contact me. My name is Colin Adkins with Cornell Cooperative Extension, Dutchess County. I can be reached at 845-677-8223, my extension 113, or by email at cda37@cornell.edu. All right, and if there's no other questions, I just want to say thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming in.
Thanks.
Important information.
So Don, I'll leave some flyers on my way out.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Okay, public comment? Supervisors report? Wassaic Trail to the Train update, project award package sent to DOT by WSP Cells.
on May 13, 2019. Bid results have been reviewed and approved by Dutchess County Planning so that A. Colarusso and Son Incorporated is eligible to be awarded a contract funded under the Community Development Block Grant for $100,000 awarded to the Town of Amenia. Town of Amenia Highway Garage Land Update, we're scheduling a meeting to plan the parking area for DEC land and the Highway Garage land transfer for fishing. Noise law update under review by Town Board. Dutchess County Procurement Shared Services, RFPs for Highway Garage Engineering Services, CDBG Sidewalk Repair Engineering Services, and new email upgrade being completed. Regional Ambulance Grant, responses for Regional Ambulance RFP are due at the Northeast Town Hall at 2 p.m. on May 20th. Well, sanitation, we have a resolution to accept negotiated proposals today. And grant update, a letter of intent to be sent to Tribute Garden for grant to pay for Fountain Square upgrade. Highway report.
Hello. Well, we've been pretty busy with all the rain, the dirt roads, and everything else has been holding up pretty good. We cleaned the sidewalks in Amenia and NY. We got all of our roads swept. This year I plan on blacktopping Prospect, Sheffield, Benson, and maybe May Lane. I'll be using the shared paver. And then taking it around a couple of other roads, doing some shimming. And then also plan on sealing Separate, Flanagan, and hopefully Sharon Station and the bottom of Depot Hill to our new blacktop by the rail trail. And then I got a new employee starting on Monday. His name is Jonathan Todriff. And then we'll have a full crew again. I got the salt shed all repaired, and I sent the pictures to Stephen.
Okay.
So, and Mike looked at it today, and he said it looked good. That's all I have.
Your new employee's name?
Jonathan Todriff, Todriff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Town clerk report.
Good evening. The minutes of May 2nd were circulated prior to the meeting. Vouchers for this month have been reviewed, and I'm presenting the amounts as follows. General Fund A, $95,767.33. Highway Fund, $16,854.13. Amenia Lighting, $1,329.46. Wasake Lighting, $485.67. Amenia Water, $10,411.14, for a total this month, $124,847.73.
Make a motion that we approve the vouchers to be paid as presented.
I second it.
Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Prodi?
Yes.
Also this evening, I share a reminder with the community that final tax reminder for 2019. Taxes are due to the office if you wish to pay locally no later than May 31st. I do accept postmarked, so as long as you hit the post office and it is stamped on that date. If not, you'll be paying the county directly at 22 Market Street in Poughkeepsie. I had the opportunity to speak with Kathleen Howard, our summer camp director, and at this time she's asked me to seek approvals to go ahead and advertise for an EMT and her summer camp counselors. Can I have permission to do so for her?
Yeah, I make a motion to authorize the town clerk to advertise for
Summer camp?
summer camp required employees. There's a
Second.
Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Also this evening, I'm reporting to the board that we advertised for the recreation, the RFP for the concession stand, and to date, I've received no applications. So I will follow up with Chris Milano on that, just so he knows that's where we're at. And I don't know if the board's ready to make action on the minutes?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented of May 2nd, 2019.
Second.
Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
And that'll conclude my report for this evening.
Okay, are there any committee reports?
CAC met last night, and they reviewed the Saverzi application that is before the planning board. We looked at, we discussed the state of our lack of a transfer station and our issue with recycling, and we would very much like to hear back from the county or any wider authority as to what is being done to make sure that we have recycling still available to our community. And there was a lot of support for trying to relocate another transfer station here on town property. We talked about Cricket Valley and some of the issues that continue to circulate around that project, which is certainly well on its way to completion. There was some towns locally that had purchased air monitoring equipment, and they have asked other communities around to try and to see if they want to buy air sampling equipment to then use for the air monitoring equipment. What we thought is, as a community, as a CAC, was that following state monitoring would be a more efficient place to begin to make sure that our air quality remains at least as good as it was, or, you know, is not impacted dramatically. And apparently there's a Mesonet station opposite, you know, in the park, the multi-use park south of the town, you know, in Wassaic. So we will look into what data is available there. That's been, it's a sophisticated weather station, and I'm sure it collects some sort of air monitoring. So we'll look into that. Phone conference. Is there did we get a phone that can be used for phone conferencing?
It's right there. It's on the table.
Okay. So I just bring it out. Okay, sorry.
Bring it out, put it on the table.
Climate smart communities, we did have, we've been working with the towns in the Northeast, Millerton, Amenia, and Dover to pull off a Harlem Valley Climate Smart art project. It'll be visual art. And we're trying to finalize the poster. And one of the things that the town of Amenia needs to do is to set a exhibit space and time, and it would be in this fall. So we were thinking in Town Hall, there's certainly the hallways that have been utilized successfully for art exhibiting. We thought maybe since it's fall, when the farmers market comes in the first Saturday in November, I think it's November 2nd, perhaps we could do kind of an art exhibit that also encourages people when they're walking around to see the exhibits and see the farmers market do the same thing. So is there support on the board for doing that kind of cooperative event where there would be sort of a reception and a time frame where the art project submitted would be exhibited?
Would you be the point person for that?
I would be willing to be the point person. I'd be working with the chair of the CAC and the rest of the group in the other towns to cross-promote and to make it happen We'd also like to invite the Wasaic Project and see if they have expertise in hanging art. That's not one of the things I normally do, but we hope to rope in some more.
Well, we could use the auditorium
Expertise.
too, if there's going to be poets and authors, and, we can just kind of use the whole hall from the auditorium down.
I think it was originally going to be sculptors, poets, authors, painters, dancers, but I think they're narrowing it down to visual arts. But you're right, if they do go forward with more interactive creativity, then we would want to use the auditorium. How does November 2nd sound to everybody else?
Right now, it sounds fine.
Yeah, nobody has any
Town clerk,
conflict?
anything in the calendar? I don't think.
Other than the farmer's market comes indoors, right? On the
Correct.
I have this question about the farmer's market coming indoors. Why does the farmer's market come indoors? We're the only town that has a farmer's market coming indoors. Why are
Why
we?
do they?
Yeah, why do they?
So we can offer it here.
I know we offer it here, but they only pay us a pittance to be in there of, what is it, $50 now?
Yes.
And I'm not opposed to farmers market. Listen, I love farmers. Listen, I love you. I love you do all these great things.
And they're in there for 4 hours.
Yeah, they're
It
in-
isn't like they're there for the whole day.
Right, I know that. They're in there for 4 hours, but my understanding is the people that run that organization don't really live in Amenia. Am I correct, or do I have
It
misinformation?
doesn't matter, we're offering something for the people of Amenia that, might not be here.
Right.
So it's something that we offer our constituents, fresh vegetables or whatever, whatever is at the farmer market.
So notwithstanding farmer's market,
Do you
everybody's
wanted to do it
okay?
November 2nd?
I think that's what I'd like to go back to the community and tell them that they can finalize this poster because they're waiting on us to mark a date and
Now,
a time.
is there a time? Or you don't have a
I was
time?
going to do from like 11 to 2 sort of window because there's really good food at the farmer's market, like some soups and things like that. So I thought it'd be easy to do like over a lunchtime. Does that sound all right?
Sure.
Okay. And then Sharon, one of our CAC members, Sharon Kroger, had put together a very comprehensive issue she's been following that's been mostly spearheaded in over the border in Connecticut. But it's about staying connected, giving broadband opportunities to people in rural areas and areas that have been sort of deemed not commercially viable for the cable company to say, oh, well, like Smithfield Valley wasn't connected for a while because it was too expensive per household for them to lay the lines. But I think I'm going to scan this whole packet because it's a complicated issue, lots of different issues, but she encouraged us to, over the summer, there's going to be hearings and things like that just over the line, I think,
For
in
what?
Sharon. It's this issue, it's kind of hard to explain, but it is, they're talking about fiber optics.
Okay.
And fiber optics are great, but what they're suggesting for rural areas is to set up little, like little mini cell towers, or not cell towers, but they're the people who are,
That's what AT&T is doing. That was something that Congressman Faso, he had actually met with AT&T. I have information on that I can give to you.
oh yeah, that would
Because
be good.
AT&T has actually done the research about doing like mini towers on telephone poles in remote areas. Like we have an ongoing problem with Bog Hollow with them having, cell
Right.
service there. But AT&T is actually doing the research. And I have the information, I can give it to you, for her as well.
I think it's a very complicated issue, and it sounds like, no one entity. I mean, I think we should look at AT&T's information, But it sounds like different groups have very different attitudes, and politicians have gotten involved on either side of the issue. So I will scan what I have and share, and if you can provide what you have, that would be great. But I think what we want to do is make sure that we're aware of this issue, it doesn't suddenly pop up, and once it gets installed, there's no uninstalling it probably. So happy to forward you. It'll take an hour to read through all of the stuff, is my guess. That's all we had, except that we are still working on the Quality Communities application, and we were trying to get our hands. They had asked about rooftop solar panels, and I remember Jonathan Harkness had done an evaluation of the rooftop panels, the geothermal, all the alternatives here for the town hall. So I'll forward that to them when I find that report. But if you all also want to
I have that.
look at that. Do you
want
have it
Yeah.
handy?
Yeah, I have it up in my office. I can get it for you.
Okay, great. That's it.
Okay, any other committee reports?
I guess the only thing I'd like to say for folks who wanted to go on the trip on to Lake, where were we going? The Lobster Fest. That trip was canceled for us by the venue. I had no control over it. They just canceled the whole event for that day, and there was no alternative date that would even work for us. Also, I want to thank everyone who came for the Golden Age Singers. It was wonderful. We had 20-some people come in, and they had a great time. So it was more than last year, and I hope the word gets out to everybody about what a great time it is and what a great group it is. And perhaps next spring we can do it again, and more people can come and enjoy the festivities. Because I know 2 ladies enjoyed it very much. I had to shut the lights off in the auditorium, ladies, at 4:30. And they said, "Do we have to leave?" I said, "Yeah, you do, ladies. I'm sorry." But they enjoyed it very much. So I was glad they came. I was glad they told the other people about it too. So, and that's all that I have for us right now.
Yeah, they do quite a nice selection of songs. They did several Broadway show songs.
Yeah.
And then they did a group of Americana songs.
Yeah.
They're very, very talented and very enjoyable.
Are they barbershop or something like that?
No, it's just 20 of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
20.
That
They're
goes
very
down the
good.
hall. It sounded great.
20 people in the band, in the
In the groups, 20 people in the band, and they're all seniors, they're all retired, and they've all had various careers in their lives, and they just happen to love music, and they love singing together, and it's great.
Did the price go up? It seems like it went from
It went up
150
to 200, yes, it did.
Yeah, oh, that's too bad. How many people do you think you had?
Oh, there was 20-something people, I
Yeah, at
believe.
least 25.
At least, right, yeah. So,
Thank you for doing
It
that.
was a nice break to my day. I know. Okay, before we do the resolution for transfer of funds, we have to do another resolution that's related to it. Resolution number
32.
32. Whereas Section 6C of General Municipal Law authorizes the governing board of a town to establish a capital reserve fund for the financing of all or part of cost of construction, reconstruction, and acquisition of a type of capital improvement or the acquisition of a type of machinery or equipment. Whereas the town board finds that the acquisition of highway equipment and machinery is necessary and appropriate to facilitate the continued proper functioning of the town highway department. It is hereby resolved that pursuant to Section 6C, General Municipal Law, the Town Board hereby establishes a capital reserve fund to finance all or part the acquisition of highway equipment and machinery to be used by the Town Highway Department. It is further resolved that the Town Supervisor is hereby directed to deposit the following sums in the fund: $810 for the 1997 Ford Ranger pickup truck, 2, such other funds that may be directed by the town board in any subsequent duly adopted resolution. It is further resolved that all sums deposited in the fund shall be held in a separate bank account to be known as Highway Department Equipment and Machinery Reserve Fund. It is further resolved that the town supervisor is authorized to invest the monies of the fund from time to time as provided by general municipal law. It is further resolved that no expenditure shall be made from the fund unless that expenditure has been authorized by a resolution the town board duly adopted in accordance with Section 6C of general municipal law. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall become effective immediately. I make that motion.
Second.
Councilwoman Simoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Purdy?
Yes. Resolution 33, transfer of funds for May 2019. Whereas the town board has the authority to transfer funds when necessary unanticipated to amend the budget. Whereas budget amendment in the water fund, increasing expense line 83104.06.128 administration CE software by $1,032 and by decreasing expense line 83104.06 administration CE by $1,032 for new utility billing software. Whereas budget amendment in the highway fund for increasing capital reserve fund, highway department equipment and machinery reserve fund, money market by $810 and increasing appropriated fund balance account 599 by $810 for sale proceeds of 1997 Ford Ranger pickup truck. Whereas budget amendment in the general fund, increasing expense line 13554.01.044 assessor C tertiaries by $20,000 and decreasing expense line 19004.01.049 special item CE contingency by $20,000 for unanticipated tertiary legal expenses. Whereas budget amendment in the general fund, increasing expense line 13554.01.074 assessor CE supplies by $184.19 and decreasing expense line 13554.01.048 assessor CE conferences by $184.19 for unanticipated supply expenses. Whereas budget amendment in the general fund, increasing line 14104.01.063 town clerk CE mileage by $13.34 and decreasing line 14104.01.049 town clerk conferences by $13.34 for additional mileage costs. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Amenia authorizes a transfer of necessary budget lines to process the transaction. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall become effective immediately. I make that motion.
Second.
I have a discussion question. So the $20,000 for unanticipated tertiary legal expenses, is that just to pay existing bills, or is that going to get us through to the end? And how much does that leave in our contingency?
Well, that's to cover, that's just to have
Existing?
extra in there.
Okay, so you're assuming that's going to get us through most of the year.
Yes.
So there's the 20,000 that's currently out, 18,000, almost 19. So we only have another 1,000. So Capolino.
Just for what?
So Capolino's charges, who's taken on our tertiary charges.
There's already money in the account.
So this was just this month. This month was 20,000, almost $20,000.
That was since he took over the account,
Okay.
and right now they're all in court.
And
So
hopefully
there's
going to
higher
get.
expenses. I sent you the summary on them.
Okay.
Supervisor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Simoji?
Yes.
Okay, resolution for introducing local law for adoption of zoning provisions for solar energy systems. Okay, 34. Introducing proposed local law number, we usually use X because we don't know the number.
Yeah, it'll be 2, unless you guys line up introducing something in the next 30 days.
Probably not.
Okay, so I can actually tell you it's 2.
Okay. Of the year 2019, to amend Chapter 121 zoning of the Amenia Town Code to add a new section, 121 dash,
That they'll tell us. So that'll be the X.
okay. Entitled Solar Energy Systems. Whereas in recent years, there have been a substantial increase in interest in the installation of solar energy systems in the town of Amenia. Whereas there are currently no provisions in the town of Amenia zoning code to control the placement of solar energy systems in the town of Amenia. Whereas solar energy is a renewable energy resource that can prevent fossil fuel emissions and reduce the demand for the production and transmission of electricity from large-scale power plants. Whereas the installation of solar energy systems can reduce the energy bills of the property owner. Whereas the town board is considering the adoption of local law number 2 of the year 2019 to amend Chapter 121 zoning of the Amenia Town Code to add a new section 121-X entitled Solar Energy Systems. Whereas the town board has determined that the proposed action is a type 1 action pursuant to Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law, Part 617 NY CRR, commonly known as seeker. Whereas the proposed local law is an action for which there are no other involved agencies, and that the town board is therefore by default the lead agency for this action. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby introduces for consideration of its adoption proposed local law number 2 of the year 2019 in the form annexed hereto, and be it further resolved that the town board has determined that the proposed action is a type 1 action pursuant to Article 8 of Environmental Conservation Law, Part 617, NY CRR. And be it further resolved that the town board is the only agency having approval authority for the adoption of the local law, is therefore lead agency for the purpose of seeker. Be it further resolved that the town board hereby schedules a public hearing regarding the proposed adoption of the annexed local law for 7 p.m. on the 20th day of June 2019 to be held at the Town Hall, 4988 Route 22, Amenia, New York. And the town clerk is directed to post a notice of public hearing in the town's official newspaper, the Millerton News, and on the signboard maintained by the town clerk in Town Hall not less than 10 days prior to said public hearing, as required by law. Be it further resolved that the town board here further directs the town clerk to act as follows with respect to the proposed local law. A, to serve a copy of this resolution, the annexed proposed local law, Part 1, of the full environmental assessment form and the notice of public hearing to the municipal clerk of each abutting municipality not less than 10 days prior to said public hearing. To serve a copy of this resolution, the annexed proposed local law in Part 1, the full environmental assessment form to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for advisory review in accordance with Section 239M of General Municipal Law. To serve a copy of this resolution, the annexed proposed local law, Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form, the notice of public hearing to the Town of Amenia Planning Board for its review and recommendation prior to said public hearing. D, to serve a copy of the proposed local law to the Department of Agriculture and Markets for review pursuant to Section 305-A of the New York State Agriculture and Markets Law. Can I make that motion?
Second.
Supervisor Perotti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle,
Yes.
Councilman Morris,
Yes.
and Councilwoman Samardzija.
Yes.
And Leo, would you like to talk to us a little bit about the solar law, that draft?
So there was a zoning review committee set up 2 years or more ago to look at sections of the code that New York State had specifically asked Amenia to, and all the towns, to look at. One of them was solar energy, one was wind energy. Also, my God, I'm really getting old. Also, Airbnb,
Yeah.
and the last one was...
Tiny houses.
Tiny houses.
Tiny houses, of course, which got very complicated because most tiny houses are around 300 square feet, and New York State law doesn't allow any buildings smaller than 500 square feet, so right away it was a bit of a non-starter. But anyway, the committee met. The committee started off with 12 or 15 people, and it kind of dwindled to about 4 and then 2. So basically, Nina and I had been meeting for a long time, and when we put together the document, a sort of a draft, we sent that to everyone on the original committee to review, and then we I guess started the process with Ian in terms of turning that into a law from the points that we had kind of agreed to mutually. And the solar law is something that is relatively straightforward. I know, Victoria, that you've had some interest from people who wanted to do a system here, and we didn't want to start that process without having taken a look at it more generally. New York State is very anxious to have as much solar energy in the state as possible. They've come up with an application form that's very straightforward and very simple, and we actually use that as part of this. We refer to that. What Nina and I, when Nina apologizes for not being here, she's still in White Plains on a conference call. But what we've been talking to Ian about is, first of all, how to draft this in a way that it fits into the Amenia Code as simply as possible, so that the categories are the same, because it's something that goes across all the zoning districts and the overlay districts. So we didn't want to change those. We wanted to make it as simple as possible. And basically, I think that what Ian has put together after a lot of conversation with us is that the applicable zoning rules in all the major zones would hold for this. And so that solar, like a freestanding, a ground-mounted solar system for a house, for instance, would have to have the same setbacks as anything else on the property, as an accessory building on the property, and that the size of the system is impacted by the size of the site. It's made easier for in agricultural districts. It's treated as farm equipment. And I think Ian can probably do a better job of explaining the details of that. But I mean, that was the approach. We wanted it to be as simple as possible for people to use, and we wanted it to be as minimal an impact on the existing zoning as we could get away with. So that was our starting point for the town law. Unless anyone has any questions, but I'm sure Ian has more detail on it than I do.
So in general, and you touched on it, was, and maybe Ian can go further, is that it's easier for farmers to offset some of their expenses by putting solar.
Right.
Okay. So it's farm friendly. In other
It's
words.
farm friendly.
Okay.
There were a lot of the laws were written in a way that if you were designing a system that used less than 110% of what you used on the property on site, that was a way of defining that it was not commercial. But we went through a number of iterations because we were talking about commercial buildings and commercial systems, and we tried to make the language as clear as possible. We called solar fields, and we used solar fields instead of solar systems because that was used elsewhere, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing that I should say is that we basically broke this down into categories based on the type of system. So the simplest is something that's roof mounted, and that's the simplest approval process. Then there's ground mounted, which again is limited in size for residential property. There is building integrated systems, which means there's a lot of products coming out now, like roofing materials that actually have solar built in, so that it just basically wires into the house, or windows that have a solar overlay. So that's another piece of this, which actually has sort of been coming up more since we started this process. And the last one is actually solar energy at a commercial scale. And I think one of the things that came up as we were talking about this is that because of where Amenia is located, we're kind of a little off the grid in terms of being able to feed energy back into the electrical system for New York, for NYSERDA. Is that right? And
NYSEG.
NYSEG, thank you, thank you. I have difficulty with those initial things. And so it may be that there's going to be less demand or less interest in doing a solar field installation, a commercial solar installation here, just because we're a little bit off the path of the main power lines. But anyway, unless there are other questions, I'll let Ian take over. But that's sort of the gist of what we were working with.
And if anybody has questions, they can just send them to Leo or Ian or...
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll welcome any questions. If anyone wants to email me questions about it, I would love to answer whatever questions.
But
you have.
Ian's much smarter, so I'd recommend emailing him. Okay, anyway.
Well, you and Nina did all the legwork, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate all your hard work.
Yeah, no, you guys worked long and hard on that, so.
I would personally like to thank Leo and Nina. We had a lot of conference calls on this. We worked very, very hard on this, and their efforts were exceptional.
Now that you've sat down,
Yes.
Could you come back up to and talk about the Northern Dutchess Tri-Town
Oh, are you ready
Coalition
for that?
meeting
You don't need to do
discussion?
anything further on the solar?
No, we've set the public hearing for June 20th.
Oh, okay, so that was the, okay. I wasn't sure what the next step was. And did you have any other questions for Ian that are more technical? Just because I don't want to cut it off if there's other stuff.
Now, I don't mind trying to answer those now, if anybody has them. Or you can email me, however.
What provisions gave you the most trouble as far as, coming at the conclusion that you came at?
Well, the residential was the easiest. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
the residential
residential-
roof-mounted is the
Yeah,
easiest.
roof-mounted is easy. Building integrated is pretty easy because the application processes for that are easy. Really, future planning for any solar field is where we had to do probably the most research and work. There was a lot more restrictions on those. The decommissioning plans was something that we spent a lot of time really concentrating on, because if anybody's going to invest in one of these fields, you don't want a situation where they run out of money and then it's just sitting there, or if they stop using it, it's just sitting there. So
The same as our cell tower. I mean, the same kind of restrictions as on a cell tower where you have to be responsible for taking it down if you put it up, basically.
that's probably where the most effort went in with the solar fields.
Is there a bond or something then required in order to
Correct.
ensure
Yeah,
that?
there is a fund. There's a decommission fund. In the law, it breaks down in the decommission plan. There's a very detailed description
Set
of
of
what, yeah,
plans,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's really to protect the town. So it was something we spent some time on. On-farm, the on-farm operations caused some confusion with solar farms. So in order to clarify the language and not have any confusion with regards to a solar farm and then on-farm operations, we call it solar fields. So a solar field would be more of the commercial type solar farm.
Right, yeah, it's really
Yeah, the word
commercially-
farm and the word commercial were used in different ways in other
Yeah.
legislation we looked at, and it was just like, oh no, that's going to make people crazy. So we tried to separate those
Yeah.
and give them different
And
words.
so another thing we did was the first draft of this, I spoke about this briefly at the last meeting. The first draft of this, the delineation or the description or definition of a commercial farm was based on the amount of production, which is very difficult to enforce.
Right, year to
because, you
year
know,
changes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So we basically redrafted and went to a system where it's based on the size of the actual, the surface area
Acreage
of, yeah.
or-
Well, in comparison to the principal structure on the lot. So if the solar panels occupy more than 50% of the square footage of the principal structure, then it goes into more of a commercial use.
So the size of the structure
Correct.
to be served by the solar array?
Correct.
is what would determine the size of the solar panels that you're allowed to put up.
Correct.
Without it being considered a commercial
I
operation.
see, then
Correct.
you'd change into a
And-
new threshold.
And
if
often
you
with a
had to
commercial
exceed it.
operation,
Yes.
it would either be on a farm where there are farm buildings, or it would be on another piece of property where there isn't a primary use, where it's just used for that. One other point I should make about agricultural is that some of the issues that came up were, if it's going to be on a farm, that it would not use the best agricultural soils. In other words, that they would locate it intentionally not to be on the richest soil on the property, and that we asked that people avoid cutting down trees, like not clearing a forest to put up a solar array. So there were a number of things that were targeted specifically to farms, and also to kind of protecting the quality of life. Issues about reflection too. There was a whole bunch of stuff like that came up.
Yeah, we didn't want to sacrifice one environmental cause for another.
Right,
Don't
no,
clear
prime
cut trees to put up,
soils
you know,
are
yeah.
very, very important. So
So-
prime soils, we're full of that here. And
And this law specifically states there's a preference that these are placed that ground-mounted solar panels are placed in areas where you're not sacrificing that or having to cut trees. And if you are, there's no other place to put them, that's what you have, then there's a plan for, a one-to-one. You cut one tree, another one planted somewhere else. So there's,
mitigation.
correct.
Yeah, and there's also issues about runoff, for instance, which I wouldn't have thought of necessarily, but I mean, when you have a whole field of these things and they're all angled, all that water is kind of getting concentrated to just below them, and then you have to worry about, making holes in the soil and all that stuff. So,
But as you read through the law in each section, it really it lays out, I think, pretty clearly what the requirements are for each application that you're looking to do. But again, if there's any questions, please email me, and I'll respond.
Has our building inspector looked at it, or that's just part of the process of?
I think that would be part of the process. I don't think he has yet. I mean, we showed it to
He
you
hasn't had a
first
chance to
before
look
we,
at it?
yeah.
Okay.
And I guess the other thing to think about is if you want us to do some sort of a presentation or an introduction to it for the public hearing, just let us know if that's something that we should be working on, so.
That's June 20th? Is the-
Yes.
Yeah, we need time to circulate
We
it.
need time to send it
Yeah, and get
everywhere.
everyone's stamp of approval on it.
Okay. All right, changing hats. So about 3 months ago, maybe, I was approached by Sam Bussell, who's been involved in Millerton. He was one of the founders of the Northeast Community Center, and he's been kind of involved in a whole bunch of sort of stuff in that area. And he had a conversation with the people at Hudson River Housing who were interested. They realized that they've done, Hudson River Housing has done affordable housing developments throughout almost the entire breadth of Dutchess County, except for the northeast corner, except for Amenia, Pine Plains, and Millerton or Northeast. And so what Sam had suggested was putting together a kind of a coalition or a group of people from Northeast, from Amenia, and from Pine Plains to talk about ways that what the town's needs are and what would be the best way to approach that in terms of housing. So it's really an opportunity, I think, for all of us to kind of direct what happens. I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons, and I'll be very brief about this, that I think it's a good idea. Both Victoria and I spoke to business owners, Troutbeck, for instance, Silo Ridge, I think even Harney's. A number of local businesses that are of some size have a really hard time either drawing employees or retaining employees because housing costs are relatively expensive here. I think the issue is that they're not making huge salaries, and on the salaries they're making, they can't afford to rent or to buy in Amenia. So there certainly is a need, and I also volunteer at the food pantry, which is why I need an app. But I've found I've been surprised actually at the number of people who are, have sort of issues of food insecurity and all that stuff. So I think there are a lot of people in this area that could use an improved place to live. And the other thing that we hear frequently is that people who graduate from Weebatuck or go off to college and want to come back, unless they're moving in with their parents, it's very hard to find an appropriate place to live. So there was maybe a month ago, there was a meeting that was held at the VFW in Millerton that invited, they had a pretty broad distribution in terms of mailing lists they used to get as many people as possible that were interested in the subject to get together. And Northeast Community Center and Hudson River Housing ran this thing, and they asked there were speakers, they asked people a bunch of questions. There were presentations about some housing that had been built, including one that was so energy efficient that I think the charges for mortgage and heat was only, I can't remember whether it was $100 or $300 a month, but it was an insanely small amount of money, which again made it more possible for someone who has a limited income to afford. That was actually a for purchase one. But anyway, so we looked at all that stuff, and people who were interested in continuing with this signed up, and there were, I don't know exactly how many people, but the last meeting they had was in Millerton maybe 2 weeks ago, I think, or something about 2 weeks ago, Victoria, I think. And there was more detail discussed at that. And so one of the things that was communicated that was quite interesting from the people from the three towns was that they would much prefer to have a small intervention, like a house, an existing house converted into 2 units, or a 2-family house built new, than have something like was proposed in Millerton a while ago, where I think it was like 30 units, and it was its own thing. That it was better for the people living in it because they felt more integrated into the community. It was less of a visual intrusion, and it also made it possible to either fix up buildings that are kind of in bad shape in the center of the villages where it seemed, or the town, I'll say village, in the villages where there often, especially in Amenia and in Pine Plains as well, there didn't seem to be enough people living right at the center of things to support businesses. I think that's a real issue in Amenia, probably less so in Millerton. But if there were more people that lived in the right in the center of things, that would be a benefit to having other kinds of stores and businesses here. It also meant that if seniors were going to be moving into this housing, they could walk to they could walk to businesses potentially, and also if it's a young family and they only have one car, again, it's possible to get to places without a second car.
Now,
So,
do you want to explain Hudson River Housing's?
yes. So Hudson River Housing, this was sort of surprising to me, but Hudson River Housing apparently doesn't have a problem getting the capital to build. They have worked out a sort of a tax credit system where if investors give money to funds to a pot of money that then they use to construct affordable housing, that the people who contribute get a tax credit. So those people have nothing to do with what gets built or how it gets built, but that's the way they're able to gather money to do kind of good works. So they didn't seem terribly concerned about raising the money, and it isn't a match typically. It's something that they are ready to move ahead with, but I think they felt somewhat burned by their experience in Millerton, which I can understand. I didn't think that was very well it wasn't very well presented to people in Millerton, but I also think they, especially having had a conversation with them, I think they realized that working at a smaller scale, kind of, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 units at most, is going to be much more acceptable to people. So was that what you meant, Victoria, in terms of the funding?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what, if Hudson River Housing is fairly ready to roll, and there's a very lovely apartment complex of like 6 or 7, 8 units across the street from where I live.
Uh-huh. Oh, right.
And it's for sale.
I forgot about that one. And there's also the mill housing in
Why don't
Wasaic.
they just buy an existing thing that's already working very well, and those people are very happy there.
Yeah, well, that's what was suggested because often even existing rentals are not in very good shape. I mean, the kitchens and
Right.
bathrooms are a mess, and it's sort of substandard. And
This
Hudson
one
River
isn't
Housing.
horrible. This one is not horrible.
That's
by
good.
any chance, but, you know, the roofs work, they have garages, you know, it's very nice, it works into the community. I'm just curious why they don't
No, they're
have
not.
their eyes peeled for such opportunities.
I think I think part of it is that they're in Poughkeepsie, and so they're not like driving around here. And I think that was also why they kind of wanted local partners, why they wanted people from these 3 towns who could kind of propose sites to them.
Yeah.
And I think it was also a matter of getting some people who would support this as it went through the process, that local people, in other words, could speak for this, which they didn't arrange in Millerton. And so in Millerton, I think it felt like an intrusion. People were not convinced of the need or of the
Is there a role
design.
that the municipality has to play? They can't just do this as an agency that provides affordable housing in our town?
I don't think that the town has to have an official role, but I think what they're looking for is the town's blessing and the town's input so that they don't make a, misstep in terms of where stuff is located and the kind of housing that they build. And again, one of the other suggestions was that there's a real need for senior housing. But the idea is, again, if they do it in small units, it kind of integrates seniors and and young families and various other people and young kind of working people who have a job like at Silo Ridge, that all of those people would kind of be mixed into the fabric of the town rather than having this separate enclave that's just considered workforce housing.
Well, I would be interested in going to the next meeting. I've been too buried to get to the April 30th one, but the next one, and ask them, we have affordable housing. It's in deplorable condition.
Right.
It's in downtown Amenia. These are private people who own buildings, and when they come up, can they work with private? I have some questions.
Okay, no,
Why can't we get some of the existing housing fixed up? We don't have to build something new in the middle of that raises controversy.
I'm a preservation architect, so that's
Right.
exactly my position on this, and that was one reason I got involved, because I wanted to make sure that they were considering renovating existing properties.
Right.
And I think that that's a huge benefit, because I know there are properties in the downtown
That
where the
need
upstairs aren't, where the upper floors aren't occupied because they haven't dealt with code issues, and
Right.
so there are a lot of utilized properties, which also means they're not in good repair. So that's exactly what we've been pushing them towards, but I wanted to make sure, I accepted this very, excitedly, enthusiastically, but Victoria, said that it needs to be something that has official support from the town, which hasn't happened yet. That the town board needs to feel like this is a good idea.
Well, that's why I put it on the agenda, because I pointed out to Hudson River Housing, and of course they want to come and meet with me, which is fine, but I just felt like, if there's an organization out there that says Tri-Town, I just thought the town board ought to, know what's going on and, choose to be a part of it or not.
Yeah. So in other words, the reason that I think they're trying this approach is that they're in Poughkeepsie and they don't have connections here. This is sort of the furthest end of their reach. Sam Bussell is always saying they just don't like driving this far. But the point is that they haven't developed affording in this
They
area
haven't
yet.
made the overture until now.
So
Now they have some funds from Berkshire Taconic and, to start something.
yeah, so I think it's a great opportunity. The other thing that I should have mentioned is that the other point that was made very, very loudly at the first meeting was that each of the 3 towns doesn't have a sewer system, and that each of the 3 towns feels very strongly that economic development is limited by that. So that was something that they were willing to kind of, as a group, examine. And they felt that because there are 3 towns, that it might be easier, for instance, to get our federal representative or our state representatives and senators interested in this in a way that one town trying to do it might not. So that was another kind of part of this that I think Hudson River Housing didn't start off wanting to address that at all, but I think there was so much enthusiasm in the room and a feeling that one reason that the downtowns are a little underutilized is because without the sewer you can't expand very much or can't add people or restaurants or businesses. Questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Like you're done with me?
Yeah.
I'll sit down.
Okay, other matters. I have we have the information about the planners that we interviewed, and I sent you additional information on how they handle mileage. So are you ready to choose a planner? Because we need to do it sooner than later. Or did you want to wait till Damien was here?
I'm ready. I'll make a motion that we appoint AKRF our planners.
I think we're going to defer until Damien is here.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll table this until the June 6th meeting. And we also have the modification agreement between the town of Amenia and Welsh Sanitation. We ready to move on that? So they agreed to what we asked.
Yep.
Yes.
It's 35.
35 or
35.
35.
Good, keep a track.
Yeah.
Approving 2019 modification agreement between the Town of Amenia and Valley 82 Holding Company, DBA Welsh Sanitation Service Company. Whereas the Town of Amenia entered into a franchise license agreement with Valley 82 Holding Company, DBA Welsh Sanitation Service Company, dated October 19, 2012, for the operation and maintenance of the town residential refuse and recycling center. Whereas the town and the operator previously extended the 2012 agreement on April 16, 2016, through and including March 31, 2021. Whereas on or about November 4, 2017, the Department of Environmental Conservation revised the 6 NY CRR Part 360 Series Solid Waste Management Facility Regulations, Part 360, and whereas the revised regulations have imposed additional requirements for existing registered solid waste management facilities which have compromised the economic viability of the recycling center. Whereas the town and the operator wish to amend and modify the terms of the 2012 agreement on the terms and conditions set forth in the 2019 modification agreement, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby approves the 2019 modification agreement in substantially the same form as annexed hereto, subject to the submission of such agreement by the operator's attorney in final form with all appropriate exhibits annexed thereto, including the required certificates of insurance to the satisfaction of the attorney to the town. And be it further resolved, the town board hereby authorize the town supervisor to execute the 2019 modification agreement on behalf of the town of Amenia. The 2019 modification agreement entered into the 16th day of May 2019 between the town of Amenia, County of Dutchess, State of New York, hereinafter referred to as the Town and Valley 82 Holding Corp., DBA Well Sanitation Service Company, a domestic corporation having its principal place of business at 5273-5275 Route 44, Amenia, New York, 12501, hereinafter referred to as the operator, hereinafter the town and operator referred to collectively as the parties. Whereas the parties entered into a franchise license agreement dated October 19, 2012, whereby the operator agreed to operate and maintain the town residential refuse and recycling center. Whereas the parties previously extended the 2012 agreement on April 16, 2016 through and including March 31, 2021. Whereas on or about November 4, 2017, Department of Environmental Conservation revised the 6 NYCRR Part 360 Series Solid Waste Management Facility Regulations. Whereas the revised regulations have imposed additional requirements for existing registered solid waste management facilities which have compromised the economic viability of the recycling center. Whereas the town and operator now wish to amend and modify the terms of the 2012 agreement as set forth herein. Now therefore, in consideration of the covenants, agreements, representations, and warranties hereinafter set forth, the parties do hereby agree as follows. 1, the recitations above set forth are hereby incorporated into this modification agreement as if fully set forth herein. 2, as of March 1st, 2019, the recycling center located at 5273-5275 Route 44 in the town of Amenia, New York, is hereby closed, and any and all prior agreements between the town and the operator regarding the site recycling center are terminated subject to the terms of this 2019 modification agreement. 3, the operator will provide, in place of operating the recycling center, the following. 1, residential curbside pickup service for 9 months free of charge to all new residential accounts commencing between the months of March 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2019. 2, any resident commencing residential curbside pickup between the above months must have a pickup location located within the boundaries of the town of Amenia. 3, the 9-month free curbside service will apply to any service level, 35-gallon, 65-gallon, or 95-gallon for weekly trash and recyclable pickup, along with the use of 2 automated collection carts, one for trash, the other for recycling for each location. 4, at the conclusion of the 9-month period, the residents will have the opportunity to terminate service without further obligation to the operator or to continue services at operator's regular rates. 4, for those town of Amenia residents who wish operator to continue use of the drop-off service, the operator will make available the Harlem Valley Transfer Station located at 1933 Route 22, Wayndale, New York, 12594 to any town of Amenia resident at the current town of Amenia price schedule, which is annexed hereto as Exhibit B, which will not be increased through March 31st, 2021. Any town of Amenia resident wishing to use the Harlem Valley Transfer Station must present valid identification exhibiting a valid town of Amenia address. A driver's license or passport is an acceptable form of identification. The Harlem Valley Transfer Station hours of operation, excluding recognized federal holidays, shall be Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Saturday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. The operator shall notify the town whenever normal operating schedules are changed for any reason, including weather conditions. The operator will further maintain the required licenses or permits for the Harlem Valley Transfer Station and secure and renew all approvals and permits as may be necessary for the continuous and uninterrupted operation of the DEC registered transfer station through March 31st, 2021. The operator agrees to reimburse the town for any and all damages or injury to any real property or personal property of the town that may arise directly or indirectly to the extent caused by the willful intention intentional and/or negligent acts or omissions of the operator, its owners, principals, agents, and employees during the performance of its obligations under this agreement. The operator shall defend, indemnify, and hold harmless the town from any and all suits, claims, actions, proceedings, or causes of action of any name and description brought against the town arising out of or in connection with the operator's performance of its obligations under this agreement, to the extent caused by the willful, intentional, and/or negligent acts or omissions of the operator, its owners, principals, agents, employees, and assigns. All insurance will be maintained pursuant to paragraph 9 of the franchise license agreement dated October 19, 2012. Any and all notices required hereunder shall be addressed to the parties at their respective addresses listed on page 1 hereof, or to such other address as may be hereafter be designated in writing by either party hereto. The operator shall not assign this agreement or its right, title, or entrance herein without the express written consent of the town. Any permitted assignment shall be upon the same terms and conditions that set forth herein. The operator shall carry out the terms of the agreement and shall not engage subcontractors to perform its obligation under this agreement. This agreement shall be construed in accordance with the law of the state of New York and constitutes a complete understanding and agreement of the parties with respect to the subject matter thereof. No modification or amendment of the provisions hereof shall be valid unless in writing and signed by both parties hereto. The parties understand that the Supreme Court, Dutchess County, New York, shall have exclusive jurisdiction of any disputes arising from this agreement under New York state law. Okay, we need to vote on accepting the modification and also giving me authority to sign the executed agreement.
Is there any interest in waiting until Damien is able to join us and be included in this vote?
I don't think so. He's aware of, he knows what we were going to put in the agreement. I mean, all of us knew that this is what we had discussed when he was here.
So my only issue is that in speaking with the CAC members and other people in town, that the lack of having a local place to bring your garbage and your recycling is difficult. And the long-term opportunity of having curbside is not ideal. And so I would respectfully suggest that we look back at their original offer, which I had originally decided was not a good idea, but now I'm reconsidering that, given the responses I've heard, is that Welsh had offered to have the town of Amenia register a drop-off center with the DEC to be operated on municipal property. Under this scenario, the town would select a location on town-owned property, register that site pursuant to the new regulations as the Town of Amenia Transfer Station to receive municipal waste and recyclables in accordance with the regulations. And once that registration is approved, Welsh would agree to provide all collection equipment, trucks, roll-off containers as necessary, all labor to operate drop-off center at no cost to the town. The drop-off rates would remain unchanged from those costs, though most recently imposed by Welsh through June 30th, 2021. This would give the town control over the site and allow for a drop-off center and to continue to be operated within the town at the same rates as was previously being charged by Welsh. Now, I understand...
And where would that be?
Well, I would suggest the 5-acre parcel where we are about to locate
Absolutely
our town highway garage.
That's not going to happen.
And
The only
why would
way,
that be?
because the only way that land got conveyed under Public Law 34 is that it to be used for highway purposes.
And that's not an allowed purpose.
The way the law reads, it said that the state can convey state land for highway purposes, period.
Okay, so I guess that's not an option, so There is no other site that I can think of that would be available, appropriate.
We're also talking cost here.
Yes.
Beside, we're talking about the cost of, even if there was a site, of,
You'd need to secure it because nobody's just going to be allowed to drop off
well, it isn't
stuff.
just securing it. You'd have to pay all the, whatever it costs to do the registration, which may need may require an engineer services. And you'd also have to have someone there. I mean, Welch can supply the trucks or whatever, like I think they do in Red Hook. They supply a truck and a recyclable thing. But there's also, Red Hook also has employees
They
to
said
see
they'd provide
who's coming
labor.
in.
They said that they'd provide all labor to operate the drop-off center at no cost to the town.
It seems to me it's a little late to be going through this now, after we've negotiated this. Ian has been in negotiations with these people now for weeks. It's a little late to be bringing it up now, Vicki, I think. My understanding was that we had considered an alternate site that could be used, and apparently there wasn't any. That's what I was told anyway, and that's why we went this route in the first place.
Well, I've been hearing a lot from local residents, but maybe you all haven't heard the same group
No,
of
I
people.
haven't.
Very upset about not having access to a local transfer station.
Well, as I said, it's a little late now to be bringing that up.
As far as the modification of this particular agreement is concerned, it wouldn't bar a discussion later on about
You know, I
future
mean,
transfer
should,
station.
I mean,
It could be a
should we
conversation
find,
after this
yeah,
is
should
said.
we
I don't know
find
if
a
it should be part
place
of this
and
modification
and
of
do
the-
You
it?
don't think it's an either-or situation?
No.
I think we've gone down the road of negotiating this, it's been agreed to at this point. That wouldn't bar a conversation of the town doing something in the alternative, but we had a contract that needed to be modified for various reasons, and there's been an agreement on that. I don't make any decision or judgment with regards to a future transfer station, but it's certainly a conversation that the board could handle in the future. This wouldn't bar that.
Did we make the motion on this?
Motion has not been made yet.
Okay. I would like to make the motion on approving the 2019 modification agreement between the Town of Amenia and the Valley 82 Holding Company. I guess it's called DBA Welsh Sanitation Services.
I'll second the motion.
Councilwoman Smoji,
Yes.
Councilman Morris,
Yes,
Councilwoman Doyle,
No.
Supervisor Perotti.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. I think the other motion I have to make is for Victoria to sign something.
It's within the agreement, no. You're accepting resolution number 35 as read, and it's stated within.
Oh, it is in there, so we don't have to make another motion.
No, it's within. It's the last resolve.
Okay.
Are there any town board comments?
I would just like to say that we're going to have the annual Memorial Day services down at Fountain Square this year on Monday, the 27th, 11 a.m. And I would like to invite all the Amenia residents to come on down and...
Fountain Square?
Fountain Square. Did I say Fountain Square?
No.
What did I call it? Did I rename another place in
I just thought they want to
Amenia?
know where it was.
Fountain Square in Amenia. I thought maybe I renamed another building or something. But you're all welcome to come on down, it's going to be a very good thing. And thank you, Vicki, for going out and contacting all those people and making those arrangements.
Yes, we're looking forward to it, and it's 11 o'clock on the 27th, right?
Right.
And Monday, the 27th.
Line up at the Amenia Firehouse, 10:30.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, very important.
Kickoff at 10:45, so we were up here by 11.
Right.
Yep. And we have a candidates forum here at the town hall from 1 to 3 for anybody who wants to hear what we have for the candidates, and we have early voting, so I'm sure we'll be talking about those timings. It's all a little bit different this election season.
If there's any other town board comment? I make a motion for us to go into executive session with the town attorney.
Can I mention one more thing?
Yes.
So on Saturday, the 18th, we mentioned it before, but there is Community Day and the opening of Wassaic exhibits. Saturday, I can't remember the timing, but there is a
3
parade
o'clock.
at 3 o'clock,
yeah.
right? That band is not to be missed.
Don't miss the parade.
Because that is so much fun. Rain or shine, it is, you will not be sorry that you came out. They are delightful, and you can participate or just watch.
Oh,
It's
and-
lovely.
And also, just to, the South Amenia Presbyterian Church this Saturday on the 18th, the right date, yes, we're going to have their annual roast beef dinner, so please come to that. And the Wassaic Fire Company is going to have their breakfast on Sunday, May 19th, so you can eat
Oh,
the whole
weekend.
weekend.
Okay.
You've had the motion to,
Yeah, make a motion to go into executive session with the town attorney. The town clerk is excused. We'll be meeting in the assessor's office
To discuss potential
to
litigation in
discuss potential litigation.
regards to tax certs.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None.
Any opposed?